All right, guys, we've been having some problems with fractions, so let's look at a couple things just for reminders. When we're talking about a fraction, we're always talking about having a top number and a bottom number. But in math terms, we call the top number the numerator, and we call the bottom number the denominator. Now, if you're confused, remember the hint that we said, that numerator starts with N, just like the word north. And for most of us, north is up. Denominator starts with a D, just like the word down. So one way to think about numerators and denominators is that the numerator is the north number and the denominator is the down number. So what do these two different numbers represent? Your denominator always represents how many total pieces make up a figure or how many total items are in a set. So if I draw a model from this fraction, I have to make sure that I have at least 3 things in my set because my denominator is 3, or I've got some figure that I'm going to divide into 3 pieces because my denominator is 3. Your numerator can represent a lot of different things, but for most of us it's going to be what we shade or what we're talking about. So if this numerator is 1, that means I'm talking about or shading in one area, or I am talking about or not shading in one area. So the numerator isn't always what's colored. Sometimes it's what is colored and sometimes it's what's not. So you've got to remember that the numerator is what we're talking about or focusing on. So let's look at another one. 2/4. My denominator is 4, so my model needs to have 4 pieces. My numerator is 2, so I'm talking about 2 pieces. So I think for now it'll be this top piece, and it's going to be this right piece. I'm talking about these 2/4 that are shaded in. So what does that mean if I have different kinds of models? So on this page, we've got a couple of different models here that we're going to look at. And starting up here at the top, I'm noticing that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles. So if I make any fraction, my denominator is going to be 8. In this model, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So any fraction I make is going to have a denominator of 6. What do you think about this triangle? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, so my denominator has got to be 4. Let's skip this number line for now and come down here to the circle. I'm noticing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, so my fraction's got to have a denominator of 6. Now let's go back up to the number line. Let's count the spaces that make up this line. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't make a difference if I'm using the number line or if I'm using the pi. My denominator is 6 because both of them are broken into 6 pieces. So if I start to shade, I'll shade in 1 piece, I'll shade in 2 pieces, I'll shade in 3 pieces, so I'm talking about 3/6. If I come up to a number line, shading in parts of a number line is a little bit different because here we take jumps. So I think I'm going to jump from the beginning to here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in that jump, so I'm talking about 4/6 of that line. I think here I'm only going to color in the center one, which means I'm talking about 1/4. So let's do a couple that are backwards. If I come up here, I think I'm going to be talking about what is not shaded in. So I'll color in 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, I'm talking about what is unshaded. So for this one, 1, 2 pieces are unshaded. If I come up to the top, I think I'm only going to color in that piece, but I'm talking about now what's unshaded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7/8 are unshaded. So let's take this to level 3. What happens when we start to add fractions on number lines? Remember, we're lucky because in 3rd grade, our denominators always have to stay the same. So if we start at the top number line, the first thing we're going to pay attention to is how many spaces the line is broken up into. But remember, we're talking about one whole model or one whole section. So when I start to figure out how many pieces I need, I'm only going to pay attention to the part of the number line that goes up to 1. Let's forget about this part for right now. Here, I'm only talking about the pieces that add up to 1. Here, I'm talking about the pieces that add up to 1. I'm going to save that last one for later. Maybe you can figure that one out by yourself. If I'm only talking about the pieces that add up to 1, I'm noticing that in this top number line there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So any fraction that I make is going to have a denominator of 4. Now I'm looking at how many pieces are taken up by one jump. One jump looks like it's taking up 1, 2, 3 spaces. So my first jump is 3/4. My second jump is taking up 1, 2, 3 spaces. So my second jump is also 3/4. Well, with denominators, they're never going to change because our pieces that make up 1 never change. But if I've got 3 sections plus another 3 sections, I have 6/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So another way to look at that is to count a mixed number. On a number line, that's pretty easy. I can see that my number line starts at 0, it goes to 1, and it doesn't finish until the number 2. So that means since my jump doesn't even come to the number 2, my answer can't be any bigger than 2. I'm noticing that I passed the number 1, so I know that my big number, my whole number, is going to be 1 because I'm passing one whole part of this number line. Plus I've got 1, 2 extra spaces. So 1 and 2/4 is the same as 6/4. If I come down here, my pieces change. From 0 to 1, there are 1, 2, 3 spaces. So my denominator has got to be 3 all the way across, because remember, denominators don't change. My jump is going here, 1, 2 spaces. So my first jump is a jump of 2/3. My second jump is going 1, 2 spaces, so that's another 2/3. 2/3 plus 2/3 is 4/3. Or I could look at it this way. I'm passing the number 1, plus I've got 1 more space. 1 and 1/3 is the same as 4/3. So let's come down here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces that get me to the number 1. So my denominator is going to be 5 all the way across. Let's look at my first jump. My first jump lands here, and that's 1, 2, 3 spaces. That means my first fraction is showing me 3/5 of the line. My second jump is taking up 1, 2, 3 spaces. So again, that's 3/5. 3/5 plus 3/5 equals 6/5. Or, I'm past the number 1. So 1, there's 1 extra section. 1 and 1/5 is the same as 6/5. So what do you think about this last one? Well, to start out, I've got to focus on how many spaces get me from 0 to 1. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So my denominator has got to be 4. Now I take a peek at my first jump. My first jump is going 2 spaces. 1, 2. So that's 2/4. My second jump is also going 2 spaces. So that's another 2/4. 2/4 plus 2/4 is 4/4. Notice how my numerator and my denominator are the same. Looking here, I don't pass the 1. As a matter of fact, my jumps land on 1, so I could say that 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. I hope that helps. Stay tuned for level 3.